In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how Daredevil would train if he existed in real life. And then I'm going to teach you how you can train your body and mind so you can build strength, power, endurance, and even greatly enhance your senses, all to become like our favorite vigilante. And stick around till the end of the video where I'll be giving you a full workout plan based off how Daredevil would train in real life. Then, once you've learned all this, you can finally become like Daredevil, all without even needing to go blind. Daredevil, aka Matt Murdock, grew up as the son of a boxer named Battle and Jack in the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood of New York City. Hell's Kitchen was and still is a rough place to live, and Matt's father always tried to keep him away from violence in the hopes that one day the boy could get an education and escape Hell's Kitchen. The young Matt Murdock's commitment to his studies made him a target for bullies who nicknamed him Daredevil when he wouldn't fight back. This really angered and frustrated Matt, so he would work out these feelings in the gym. Matt's life was changed forever when he saw an out-of-control truck speeding towards a blind man crossing the street. Matt pushed the bystander out of the vehicle's path, which had been carrying radioactive materials. A container fell out of the vehicle and broke open, spilling a radioactive liquid into Matt's eyes. The incident left Matt blind, but all his remaining senses were greatly enhanced. Soon after, he met Stick, a blind martial arts master, and under his tutelage, Matt came to understand his newly developed senses and blossomed into a formidable fighter. As a college student, Matt attended a boxing match in which his father would be fighting. A criminal known as the Fixer ordered Matt's father to throw the fight, and he agreed. But at the last second, after seeing his son Matt look up to him in the crowd, he couldn't bear to take a dive in front of his son, and he went on to win the fight. This enraged the Fixer, and later on that night, a group of the Fixer's goons ganged up on Matt's father and took his life. The death of his father shook Matt to his core, and ended up with him taking on the mantle of the Daredevil. This time, not as a victim, but as an avenger. So that's how Daredevil got his start. But what kind of powers does he actually possess, and what kind of training has he undergone? Well, of course, with his father being a legendary boxer, Matt was exposed to the world of boxing from a young age, but his real training started when he met Stick. Through training with the old blind martial arts master, the young Matt Murdock not only learned to master many forms of martial arts, such as boxing, ninjutsu, kung fu, judo, aikido, wrestling, and stick fighting, but Stick also taught Matt to understand and take full advantage of his newly developed enhanced senses. There is actually a way you yourself can train and enhance your senses, which we'll talk about later in the video. These enhanced senses more than make up for Matt Murdock's lack of sight, giving him abilities like a radar sense that allows him to perceive the proximity and arrangement of objects around him, the ability to work as a human lie detector by listening to people's heartbeats, and even track a specific person in a large crowd by smelling for their aroma. In addition to all his fighting expertise, his heightened senses, and his ability to stay calm in stressful situations, Daredevil is also an Olympic-level gymnast with the acrobatic ability of a circus performer. Now remember, besides his heightened senses, Matt Murdock doesn't have any special powers like super strength or speed. So if he existed in the real world, how would he have to train to develop the kind of speed and athleticism we see from him in the comics? Well, his training would have to be a combination of mixed martial arts, gymnastics, explosive strength training, functional weight training, and a lot of cardio and conditioning. The trick with designing Daredevil a training program is that for him to maintain his incredible speed and Olympic-level acrobatic skills, he wouldn't be able to put on a lot of weight. Because of how much he relies on his mobility in a fight, every extra pound of body weight would slow him down and prove to be a liability. But while he needs to be light, he still needs to be strong enough to take on multiple opponents at the same time, who are often going to be much larger than him. So when it comes to his strength training, he would need to focus on exercises that make him more powerful and explosive without causing him to gain too much bulk. Pro MMA fighters, especially those in the lighter weight classes, need to train in a very specific way to make sure their bodies are using every single pound of muscle mass they can afford to have as efficiently as possible, so that they can build additional strength and explosive power without getting much bigger, exactly like Daredevil would have to do. They do this by increasing their strength and power via improvements in neuromuscular recruitment. Essentially what this means is that they're training their brains and their nervous systems to recruit a higher percentage of the available muscle fibers that make up their skeletal muscles to achieve higher levels of strength, rather than creating new muscle fibers, which would obviously make them larger and heavier. You can just think of this as your body becoming better at using the muscle it already has, which in turn leads to more strength while maintaining the same body weight. But how does one actually do this? They do it by training at a high intensity with a low amount of volume, also known as doing a low amount of reps with heavy weight. An example of this could be doing 5 sets of 3 reps on the back squat, or 4 sets of 5 reps on a box jump. Doing this sort of training will maximize the amount of strength and power gained while minimizing minimizing the amount of weight gained, so it's the perfect training method for Daredevil. And in terms of exercises, Daredevil would want to do movements like heavy kettlebell swings, med ball throws, and sled sprints to build his explosive power, which would be done at a high intensity with a low amount of overall volume. Then he would also want to do movements that build functional strength and more robust joints like single leg squats, deadlifts, landmine pressing, and rotations. And these would be done at higher reps to build endurance, but he would keep the overall volume done on these exercises low enough that it doesn't create too strong of a stimulus to grow new muscle tissue. If you're liking the breakdown and want me to cover how Nightwing would train in real life, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment Nightwing down below. For his acrobatics, he would have to train in a less elegant and refined way than how Olympic-style gymnasts train, because Daredevil needs his acrobatic skills to give him the edge in a fight and allow him to quickly traverse the rooftops of Hell's Kitchen. So he would train the conventional gymnast movements like muscle-ups, pull-ups, hollow holds, and dips, but he would also have to mix in these type of movements in with parkour style training, because while he's fighting in the streets, he doesn't have the luxury of hanging on to a nice smooth bar, and instead he'll be springing up from the edge of buildings or jumping from car to car during a chase. So Daredevil would need to train himself to use his acrobatic skills in a more dynamic way so he can quickly adapt to the diverse architecture of the streets of New York. In terms of martial arts training, he would be getting a lot of practice and time sparring while out fighting crime, so any time spent training his MMA skills would be focused on refining any weak points or subtle flaws in his fighting style. The final and probably most important aspect of Daredevil's training routine would be his cardiovascular training. Between jumping from building to building, getting into long drawn-out hand-to-hand brawls, and chasing down bad guys on foot, Daredevil's cardiovascular system is going to be taking a beating. So a real-life Daredevil would need to develop his conditioning so that it would never become a limiting factor. We talked about this in my How the Punisher Would Train in Real Life video. There are 3 main energy systems that the body uses to create and use the energy that our muscles need to function: the phosphagen system, glycolytic system, and oxidative system. We won't go into great detail on the 3 systems here. For that, you can watch my Punisher video after this one's over. But all you need to know is that the phosphagen system powers your muscles during the first 10 seconds of hard exertion, using the stored energy in your muscles. The glycolytic system then takes over to create energy from carbohydrates without the use of oxygen during slightly more prolonged, intense activity. Then the oxidative system kicks in and uses proteins, fats, and carbs in the presence of oxygen to fuel your body during longer bouts of lower intensity activity. Daredevil would need to train each of these energy systems to be able to have the max power output to sprint at high speeds, have the strength endurance to hold his own in a long fight, and to have the long-term endurance to keep his energy levels up during a long night of fighting crime. The nice thing is that Daredevil would train most of these energy systems while fighting crime, so the only one he'd really need to focus on in the gym would be the phosphagen system, aka his ability to do sprints. Training sprints on foot is perfectly acceptable, but given the amount of stress that will already be placed on Daredevil's joints from all the crime fighting, he would want to go for a more low impact form of sprinting, like sprinting using a sled or aerodyne bike. If you want to train just like Daredevil, I've created a full version of the type of training plan that he would need to follow, and I'll be giving it to you at the end of the video. Daredevil's powers and skills are only part of what makes him so powerful. It's the classic red devil suit that really strikes fear into the hearts of his opponents. I'm sure you want to feel just as badass as Daredevil does when he puts on his super suit, and that's where my partners over at SuperX come in. They make the world's highest quality and most badass superhero-themed workout apparel. You can think of them as Lululemon meets Marvel. They have designs based off of all your favorite superheroes, so you can be sure to find an outfit that fits your style. They've got hundreds of thousands of customers across the globe with thousands of 5-star reviews, so you know this is some good stuff. I've been working out in my SuperX gear for months now, and I've been loving it. Not only is it super comfortable, but thanks to its form-fitting design, it makes me look 100% more jacked. Now go get yourself your own supersuit by clicking the link in my description. That'll take you to www.superx.co, and then you can use promo code DEMERCE for 20% off your first order. Make sure to go check them out when the video is over. Now back to it. Now you might be wondering, but wait, if I want to be like Daredevil, wouldn't I have to enhance my senses just like him? And that's not possible in real life. But the cool thing is, you can actually train to enhance your senses and make them more sensitive to different stimulus. And this is through a process called perceptual learning. See, the sensory receptors on our body largely set a limit to what we can perceive, but that's not the end of the story. Our perception is much more malleable than you might expect. The scientific field of perceptual training is helping us to understand perception and how we can enhance it. Research reveals that in the same way that we can train to improve skills such as sports or languages, we can train to improve what we can see, hear, feel, taste, and smell. just like Daredevil. In a typical sensory training, the trainee is presented with a range of sensory stimuli that vary in how easy they are to perceive. Taking touch as an example, these might be bursts of vibrations on the finger pad that vary in how fast they pulse. The trainee usually has to make a judgment about the two stimuli, such as whether or not they're the same or different. Typically, this process starts with a really easy comparison by using two very different stimuli and gets successively harder. Feedback on whether a person is correct or not significantly improves learning, as it allows people to match what they see or feel with the properties of the actual stimuli. So maybe Daredevil's ability to read by feeling the slightly raised surface of the ink on a page might not be that far away from what might be possible with enough practice. But by how much can we actually expect to improve our senses? That largely depends on how long and how hard you train, but the results can be substantial. In a study that focused on touch training, the participants that trained for just 2 hours found improvements of about 42%. Now, being able to differentiate between two vibrations that slightly different intensity might not sound that interesting, but how about using perceptual learning to increase one's athletic ability? In 2014, there was a study that showed dramatic improvements in batting statistics in baseball players that were trained in perceptual learning. After the training, they were striking out less often and creating more runs. The training consisted of 30 25-minute sessions, each on a different day, using a visual perceptual learning program that consisted of targeting Gabber patches. Gabber patches are these weird little blur things. Now, using these type of vision training apps don't actually do anything to alter the photoreceptors in your eye. Instead, the app increases the optical performance by allowing the brain to filter out noise and more effectively tune in to the sensory signal. This is the exact thing that Daredevil does when he's hearing, when he tries to focus in on someone's heartbeat from 50 feet away to see if they're lying. You can actually download one of these visual training apps and use it yourself to improve your vision. And researchers are currently working on an app that would theoretically do the same thing for your hearing. Pretty cool stuff. Now, the workout program I've designed for you is a 4-day-a-week training split that has 2 functional training days that'll have you building muscle, increasing your balance, and bulletproofing your joints, and then 2 explosive strength days to increase your neuromuscular recruitment of your fast twitch muscle fibers that'll make you almost as fast as the Daredevil himself. To download the free PDF that'll make it super easy to follow the program while you're at the gym, just follow the link in the description of this video. I've also partnered with Onnit to bring you guys a bunch of cool free trials of their supplements, so make sure to check those out for some free samples down below. Now go check out my video on how the Punisher would train in real life, and I'll see you guys there.